All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, football fans of all ages, I am Beats Mikey. You have now arrived at my train of thought. It's finally time to pick the NFL awards winners and the predictions for this year for me. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get down to business. First, the individual stuff. I'm not going to pick the Walter Payton Man of the Year. I'm just hoping that they continue the tradition and legacy that award has had. So hopefully all 32 teams have quality representatives, and then whoever wins is truly worthy of the award. We've seen some great winners in the past, so I'm not going to pick that one, but I am going to pick the on-field ones, which will start with the rookies of the year. First, offensive. It doesn't seem all that hard. I'm going to go with Caleb. Caleb Williams wins the Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think he does live up to the hype fairly early on. I think it will have a little bit of lumps to it the first couple games, but I think he gets rolling in October, something like that, and then he starts to handle his business, and I think he will be very productive for the Bears. More on them shortly. As for the Defensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go with Jared Verse. I think the Rams are going to be very good again, and their D-line obviously took a major hit without Aaron Donald. For their chances to get back to the playoffs and stay afloat, I think Verse and, to a lesser extent, Brandon Fisk are going to have to play pretty well in helping fill the shoes of 99. I think Verse does play pretty well and joins a long line of Rams draft picks that have really hit lately. Comeback players of the year. First, offensive. I'm going to go with Joe Burrow. I think Burrow, when healthy, has shown himself to be a very dangerous opponent and a very dangerous player, and a very good one for that matter. I think he's going to have to because of the chaos that's going around him when it comes to that Bengals roster. Are they going to keep Chase and/or Higgins? We will see. Defensive comeback player of the year. I'm going to go Jalen Phillips. Phillips was breaking out last year, like I mentioned. I thought he'd be the breakout player, and he was looking like it until the MetLife turf said, no, you're no longer looking like it. And I think he looks like he will be back. He's already been cleared. He's been practicing. He should be good to go on Sunday against the Jaguars. I think Phillips is going to have a 10 to 12, maybe even 13 sack season ahead of him. Give me Jalen Phillips, comeback player. Now, I did 32 different breakout players, one per team. The one I think that will break out the most amongst them is Derek Stingley Jr. of the Houston Texans. I think the Texans are still going to be really good, and one of the final pieces of that puzzle are a lockdown, shutdown corner. I think Stingley Jr. will be tested somewhat and will be amongst the league leaders in NOs this season if he doesn't lead them outright. I think Stingley Jr. finally puts to bed the Texans passed on Sauce Gardner for him claim, and he becomes a top 10 corner in his own right. Give me Derek Stingley Jr. for the breakout of all breakouts this year. Coach of the year. I'm going to take Matt Eberflus, so the Bears. Chicago's got a lot of pressure on them, and I think he's got a lot of pressure on him because, let's face it, if things don't work out, Chicago's probably looking for a new coach and an offensive one to try to make sure that Caleb Williams lives up to all the hype that he's been given. The Bears looked far better in the latter half of the year last season than in the starting half of it, the former half, if you will. I think part of that's because the Bears' defense looked great. I think they will continue to take steps forward, and Eberflus continues to step forward in his own right. Offensive MVP. Now, this is non-quarterback. I think we'll go to Tyreek Hill. He's been so close to this award the last 2 years. He finished second last year, and had he gotten to 2,000 yards or even broken Calvin Johnson's receiving record, which it looked like he was going to do until the hip drop tackle against the Titans, I think he will not necessarily get close to 2K or close to Calvin's record, but I do think he leads the league in touchdowns again, and I think he continues to remain an incredibly dominant fixture of the Dolphins' offense. Defensive player of the year, I went off the beaten path a little bit on this one. I took Montez Sweat from the Bears. Again, Chicago's defense really improved greatly once he got there. Jalen Johnson became a lockdown corner the second he got there, or at least more of one anyway. And the Bears finished incredibly strong. Chicago, for them to take that step forward, I think he continues to. And I think he becomes one of the top flight edge rushers in the game when it comes to getting sacks and getting home to the quarterback. Give me Montez Sweat. And my QB MVP, Josh Allen. He has to be. Like I mentioned before, when I did my power rankings, I said Josh Allen I thought was going to be the NFL MVP. I don't think he has a choice. I think he has to, in order for the Bills to make the playoffs, Josh Allen has to live up to the lofty expectations of everybody that everyone's given him since he got Diggs, and now that he doesn't have Diggs, he has to probably play at that same level without him. If he doesn't, the Bills aren't a playoff team. That roster just doesn't look all that great. Which leads me to my divisional picks. I'm going to go in seeding order with them. And you'll probably sense a theme of rosters I really, really like that are going to be ones making the playoffs here for the most part. Let's get to it. AFC first. Kansas City are the 1 seed. They're not going to have too much competition in the AFC West. I think their floor is 4-2 in the division. They probably go 5-1, and they're better than what they were last year, which is saying something. Their defense is strong, even though L'Jarius Sneed's not in anymore. And I think the Chiefs are going to be a very dominant team, and it's going to be insufferable for 31 other fan bases. I got Miami as the 2 seed. As we've seen over the last couple of years in the McDaniel era, the injury gods have not been nice. We saw how great Miami's offense looked in 2022, and Tua had the concussion issues, and we saw the results of with Tua versus without him, and how bad they looked without Tua. And then last year, Tua's healthy. He's awesome. The offense is even better. It's the best in the league. And then injuries in December at the worst possible times really took everything, all the steam, all the momentum out of the defense, and Miami basically went to Kansas City to freeze. I don't think that happens this year. We saw what happens. Even if Miami beats the Titans last year, they're not in Kansas City, and they're the 2 seed anyway. I think this time with the weaker Bills and a Jets team I'm just honestly not sold on, I think Miami ends up with a 2 seed, 11 or 12 wins. Kansas City I think will get 12 to 13. Houston's the 3 seed. Now, I do think the Texans, with the hype that they are given, will struggle somewhat to live up to it. There are some deficiencies. I don't love this offensive line, Laramie Tunsil aside, but I do like the high-end talent that they have. I just mentioned Stingley Jr., obviously Stroud, this incredibly dominant receiver core, or at least that's what it looks like. Getting Mixon is going to take pressure off Stroud. I like what the Texans have. I think they're going to continue to improve and continue to ball out. Houston probably gets 10 wins or so. That's good enough to win the 3 seed, because the Division of Doom will have the 4 seed. That goes to the Bengals. As we've seen over the years, there's almost always a worst to first. There's almost always 4 new playoff teams. This is the first of what those trends would indicate. Cincinnati, even with their struggles, even with their chaos, and you see why I picked Joe Burrow to win Comeback Player of the Year, because I think he and Chase and Higgins, when they eventually get right, I think the Bengals end up getting the 4 seed and finding their way in the playoffs. I think we'll get a little bit better of a pass rush from Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson, and that Cincinnati will get into the playoffs. Their defense gets a little bit better with Geno Stone and Von Bell coming back. Give me Cincinnati to get the 4 seed. They will meet an old foe in the first round of the playoffs. I've got the Ravens as the 5 seed. Baltimore's defensive losses are concerning to me. Yes, they did lose a lot of coaching. I just mentioned Stone, who's one of the league leaders in NOs. He gone. Patrick Queen, he's gone to Pittsburgh. But I do think Baltimore's offense is going to be very dynamic, and I trust the defense to be somewhat of what it was last year. I was also very highly tempted to pick Kyle Hamilton as Defensive Player of the Year. I really was. Hamilton was outstanding in the 23 season. I think he will continue to be outstanding in the 2024 season. I think he's going to do very well amongst the Defensive Player of the Year nominees and candidates. I may not love Buffalo's roster, but I think Josh Allen's going to will them into the playoffs. Give me Buffalo as the 6th seed. Now, there are some other non-Josh Allen things to like here. James Cook is a good running back. They have 2 very good tight ends. And their defense has shown themselves to be sturdy. I just think that there's so much they have to replace and so much that they have to adapt with on the fly. And the leadership council is mostly gone, sans Allen and John Dawkins, who is a really good left tackle. I just think Buffalo is going to be good, but not the Buffalo that we've been accustomed to seeing over the last 5 years. Yet, I think Allen will win MVP because he wills them into the playoffs, and he's statistically ridiculous, or close to ridiculous anyway. Buffalo gets 9 wins or so. They end up as the 6th seed. As for the 7th seed, in an AFC that's incredibly hard, I did think about the Steelers or Browns returning, but I don't love either quarterback situation. I thought about the Chargers and Jaguars re-entering the playoffs, but I don't love either of their rosters. I did think about the Jets a little bit, who have a good roster. I don't love Aaron Rodgers, or their coaching for that matter. So, I'm going to take the Colts. The other team that did relatively well, but were a few plays away from making the playoffs. Give me Indianapolis as the 7th seed. I think Anthony Richardson's health will be a major reason for this. And even if he's not, Joe Flacco already showed he could come off the couch and help a team get to the playoffs. See the Browns last year. I like what Shane Steichen is doing. He was another guy considered for Coach of the Year. And I think Indianapolis, with a healthy Richardson somewhat, and a fully healthy Jonathan Taylor, are good enough to get back into the playoffs as the 7th seed. Their stay will be short, however. They will go to Miami, and I think they will lose to the Dolphins in the wild card round. I don't think their roster is good enough to keep up with Miami. The Richardson will give the Dolphins fits. Most mobile quarterbacks seem to do that. Anyway, Dolphins move on in that matchup. In the 3-6 matchup, it will be Texans and Bills. I think Stephon Diggs will get another portion of revenge. I think Houston beats Buffalo twice this year, once in the regular season, once to send the Bills home in the wild card round. In the 4-5 matchup between the two divisional doom entrants, I'm going to take the Ravens to win the second of the 3 matchups. I think Baltimore gets 2 out of 3 this year against the Bengals, and this one on the road in Cincinnati. Give me the Ravens to get to round 2. As for the divisional round, Dolphins, Texans, I think this is where Houston's run ends. Miami, by this point, ideally will have their health on the pass rushing point of view, and Miami at home is a different breed compared to Miami on the road. Give me Dolphins to win against Houston in round 2. Give me Chiefs to beat the Ravens again. I think Kansas City wins tonight against Baltimore, and then wins in the divisional round to send Baltimore packing. These are probably the 2 best rosters in the AFC. I think the way that things match up, they face off in the divisional round, not the AFC Championship. Speaking of which, Dolphins, Chiefs, AFC title game. As I just said, Miami's a different breed at home compared to what they are on the road. I think this will be a much fairer weather game, but the result ends the same. Kansas City takes a fight from Miami, but gives one back and retains the AFC Championship. I think this is the last year where the NFL is really like this, where the Chiefs and the NFC favorite are amongst the top. But give me Kansas City to come out of the AFC once again for the 5th time in 6 years. Now to the NFC. I'm going to do it in the exact same format. The top seed, San Francisco. Voltron is now back to full strength. They have all their guys, and though I do think it'll take a couple of weeks to get back into true playing shape for Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk, ultimately the Niners are going to be fine. They'll get Greenlaw back later on, and with that, I think San Francisco is going to get a clean 12 to 13 wins and get the 1 seed. Give me the Packers as the 2 seed. I think Green Bay is going to continue to mature as things go on. Jordan Love looks like a very good QB, and I think he will continue to remain as such. Do any of the receivers truly emerge? If one of them does, I think I have the most faith in Jalen Reed in doing so. But ultimately, I think the Packers are going to continue to get better with time and with age, get this 2 seed, and keep a lot of their road at Lambeau Field. If there's a concern I have for Green Bay, it probably is their running back depth after Josh Jacobs. And it may be how quickly the defense gets right. But I do trust the Packers to do a lot of damage, and though I think they'll split with the Lions, I think they ultimately will have a better division record than Detroit, and that gets them the 2 seed. Now, the 3 seed is a tough one between the Cowboys and the Eagles, but ultimately I'm going to go with the Eagles and the trend that nobody repeats as NFC East Division champion. It feels like if either of these teams miss the playoffs, their coach is probably fired. In any event, back to the Eagles. Love the offense, a little concerned about the defense, and it will not surprise me at all if Philly Sports Radio gets very crazy after an Eagles loss because the defense gets fried like chicken. I do think this offense is going to be amazing. I do think they're going to have so many people do well on it. It's going to help kind of cancel each other out for Offensive Players of the Year type of awards. Reed Blankenship, I think, breaks out. The Eagles defense eventually gets right as the season goes on. Eagles will probably win 10 games or so, win the East. 4 seed. In the South, I'm going to take the Falcons. Now, this was absolutely going to be Tampa Bay before Atlanta made the moves for Matt Judon and Justin Simmons. But now, Atlanta's defense, I think, looks a lot better than what it did about a month ago. I like the Kirk Cousins move, obviously, and stabilizing that QB room. Their offensive talent is crazy all over the place, and they have one of the best offensive lines in football. Give me a 2021 version of A.J. Terrell, and I feel really, really good about what the Falcons have. I'm going to take Atlanta, and I think Raheem Morris is going to really get the defense into shape. I'm going to take Atlanta to win the NFC South. Give me the Lions as the 5 seed. Detroit's still really good. They just happen to be in a time where there's several other really good teams that could also get out of the NFC. I think Detroit will be tremendous at home. On the road, a little spotty here and there, but I think ultimately the Lions are going to be a very formidable foe and can absolutely get out of the NFC if things break right. Detroit is the 5. I feel similar about the Rams. The Rams, I think, are going to be the 6th seed. I think Matt Stafford has another dynamic year ahead of him. Will they be peak of powers, Stafford and Kupp, I mean? I think for this year, probably next as well. But this LA Rams team is still very good and is still very well coached. So give me the Rams as the 6th seed. Now in the NFC, I thought of Tampa Bay. I thought of Dallas. I thought of the Commanders even. I think Washington could absolutely be what Houston was last year and make a crazy run to the postseason. But I can't give all those awards to Chicago and not have the Bears in. Give me the Bears to make the playoffs as the 7th seed. Caleb emerges as a really good QB. Montez Sweat becomes the elite pass rusher he was meant to be in Washington, but this time in Chicago. The Bears really hold it down and hold it down strong. Jalen Johnson continues his incredible rise. Give me Chicago as the 7th seed. Unfortunately, their season will end at Lambeau. Yeah, I think they do get one against the Packers this season, but ultimately the one they get is in the regular season, not the playoffs. Packers are the 2 seed. Packers take care of business. Caleb Williams learns a lesson here and goes home without a playoff win. In the 3-6, I'm going to take the Rams in the upset. I think the Rams overall have an offense that's actually on par with the Eagles. There are only a few in the league that can say that. Rams, I think the Lions are one of those people. I think the Dolphins are one of those teams. I think Houston's one of those teams. I think the Niners are one of those teams. They have an offense that's so well stacked and so well balanced. And I think Kansas City and Baltimore can get there too. I think offenses that are so well stacked and balanced that they can compete with teams like the Eagles. Where I think the Rams are better is overall, I think their coaching is better. I think their defense is slightly better than the Eagles' defense is. Plus, Matt Stafford doesn't seem to be afraid of these types of stages and moments. Give me the Rams to upset the Eagles at the Lake. And give me the Lions to beat the Falcons. I don't think the Lions are going to be underdogs here, but I do think the Lions are going to win this game in Atlanta. So give me Detroit. I think they're just the overall better team. Detroit ends Raheem Morris' season for the 2nd straight year. The divisional round, 2 rivalry games and 2 divisional games. I think the Packers are going to beat the Lions. Jared Goff has been through this before. He had a playoff game at Lambeau. He did not do well in it. I don't think he'll do that well in this one either. Give me the Packers to beat the Lions. They win that 2 out of 3. Give me the Niners to beat the Rams and win that 2 out of 3. The Rams, I think, are still a good team, but I think the Niners are overall a still great team who should be relatively fully healthy. NFC Championship. Do the Packers finally beat the Niners in the playoffs for the first time in what seems like ages? I'm going to say no. At least not this year. Niners go back to the Super Bowl. They retain the NFC Championship. And in what seems like a yearly tradition, send the Packers home. So we're down to 2. And we go to New Orleans. And for the 2nd time in Super Bowl history, not only do we have a rematch, it's the 2nd time in Super Bowl history that a matchup has happened 3 times. Both of which have involved the Cowboys. Cowboys beating the Bills twice, Super Bowls 27 and 28, and Cowboys and Steelers meeting up in Super Bowls 10, 13, and 30. Dallas only won the latter of the 3. So does Kyle Shanahan avenge the ghost of his past? He's had 3 different opportunities at the Super Bowl. In all of them, he's had double-digit leads. 2 of them were against the Chiefs, all of them ended in losses that were very devastating, and it seems like more devastating than the last. Does Kansas City get their three-peat and really solidify themselves as the greatest dynasty in NFL history? You're telling me 4 in 6 years and 3 straight wouldn't be, I think that would be a ridiculous statement to make if you were to go against that. Ultimately, I think Kyle Shanahan avenges himself and rids himself of the demons and ghosts of his past. Ironically, in the voodoo capital of the United States and possibly the world, maybe he goes to a voodoo shop somewhere near Bourbon Street down in New Orleans. But I think the Niners get their 6th ring, Shanahan gets his 1st, Voltron finally adds some jewelry before Brock Purdy gets paid, and the Niners finally cash in on this era with a ring. So there you have it. These are my predictions for the 2024 season, and this is how each week is going to go for me. On Monday, I'm going to talk about every game that starts before 4 o'clock in recap form. And then on Tuesday, I'm going to do the same with every game that starts after 4 o'clock. Then, on Wednesday will come the power rankings. The 4-tier system will still happen, 8 teams a tier, 3 words or less for the main headline, and I'll go in like that for all 32 teams. I'll do this every week of the regular season, and you'll see the picks that I make on the Sports Lounge page. I will post a link below. Speaking of which, I've got to go make them. So in pick form and in video form, the Ravens-Chiefs game will be the first stop of my next train of thought.